Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Skip Allen Paints. Gosh, it's been a long time since we've talked, huh? It's been almost a month. I'm sorry I've been so bad about posting lately, but I've got a real great post this time, and I think you're going to love it. I've got some really cool announcements to make, too. The first announcement and the reason for the video is that I've made some new brushes, and they're called Buttery Oils. So all you folks that have been pestering me about doing something different than watercolor, here's another set that are opaque and very buttery and very nice to use. Along with this post, though, my friend Tim Shelbourne from the Artist Quarter has done a two-part video using Buttery Oils and making a color, I was going to say a color sketch, but I don't know if he would call it a sketch or not. It is a real simple, straightforward landscape that is beautifully done. I mean, you're going to love the way Tim works. And because of something he does in his work, I'm going to change something here in my demo as well. The other thing that is new for me is that I now have I have an Intuos 5 Touch. I love it. I really do. I kept holding back on it because I thought I wouldn't want to use it because all I could see that was new was the touch. But nothing could have been further from the truth. I really love it, and I will be doing a series of videos right after this one about how the 5 and Painter 12.2 can work beautifully together. And the final thing is a huge thank you to all of my followers. Yesterday, I think it was, I went over 1,000 followers. I'm just amazed. And I'm so tickled pink that people would like to come and see this blog. Okay, so now I've wasted 2 minutes. And what I want to do is I really want to get to the brushes and how to do them. Now, the way I'm going to do this, I'm going to do one video using one of the brushes called Worn Bristle. And I'm going to, I'm going to stay with this brush and talk to you about all the ways you can change it. And all of the brushes in Buttery Oils are similar in nature, so these changes that I can show you with Worn Bristle, you can really do with any of the brushes. So what this first video is about making how to tweak the brushes so that they will work better for you. Okay, so let's get started. Now this video is going to be a little bit longer than normal because this will take a bit of time. So it'll be about 30 minutes, that's probably. All right, so the brush that we have up here is called Worn Bristle. Let's just put a stroke or two down. You can see that it has a bristly type effect. It's like a brush that, you know, a square brush that the bristles have kind of worn out or clumped together, and you're getting this kind of effect. Now, there are a couple of things to know about these brushes. First, they are using, if we come over here to the general brush control panel. Now the panels, brush control panels, if you go to Window, brush control panels, here are all your brush control panels. And if you do Control B, you can just bring them all out at once. You may not want to do that. You may want to bring out just the ones that you use. But I like to have all of mine out here and available. Now, the method of this brush is plug-in, and the subcategory is called liquid brush. Now, there's another brush that all of you are familiar with that uses the same configuration, and that is the Sargent brush. So this brush has that sort of smooth quality or buttery feel that the Sargent brushes have. But because it's using plug-in and liquid brush, that means it can only work on the canvas layer. Okay, so if you're playing with this brush, you do need to work only on the canvas layer with it. Or, now here's a big or, I'm going to add a layer, and I'm going to go and grab a bristly dab brush as well. So I'm going to get this, let's see which one of these I want. Let's come down to 11M. Okay, now with 11M, I can start painting on this new layer. Now I've got my pickup underline color set, so that is going to pick up the underlying color. And I need this to be a little brighter so you can see where we're really working. So I'm going to put in a bright red here. Now this brush shows texture really well. Okay, so we've got a little bit of paint up here on the top. Now I'm going to switch back to the worn bristle. Okay, now we've got that bright red, so let's take another color. Let's use a bright blue. Now, as you can see out here on the layer, I can't paint anything. Nothing will paint. However, if I go here, over where there's already some pigment, I can paint. So if you're working in multiple layers and you're using other brushes than just the Buttery Oils, you can paint on another layer provided there is paint already or pigment of some sort already there. Now another trick is you can take it and drag it out like this. So where I can't paint out here like this, I can drag it out there if I go from the painted surface out. Okay, and what I can do then is I can come in with another color, and where I couldn't paint out here before, I now can. So I can expand the paint all over the canvas by dragging it from already painted area, and then, you know, painting again, just like that. So that's pretty cool. So understand or remember that these brushes basically paint on the canvas layer, but you can paint over pigment on another layer. Now I'm going to get rid of this layer right now. Okay, so let's go back to where we were, which I don't remember right now. I think what I want to do at this point is I want to bring my brush selector down here so we can see a little bit more of what is happening, or we'll see it closer without having to move the close-up when I'm doing the editing. I won't have to move that all over the place. So let's delete that, and we're going to start again. I'm going to take a dark green. Okay, so this is Buttery Oils Worn Bristle. If we look at the property bar, we have the size at 33.7, the opacity is at 100%, and the grain is at 100%, and jitter is at 0. Now, you can change any of these and potentially make a difference. So here is just the brush stroke. I'm making a stroke, picking up, making another quick stroke, all right? Now, if I take my opacity down to, say, 8%, now you see that the opacity will affect the way this brush works, okay? So let's take that back up to its standard. Now, grain, I'm going to hold grain for a while because there's something strange about grain. I mean, it's really kind of fun. Well, I tell you what, let's go on and do it now. What we've got is we've got grain at 100%, and the expression is pressure. Okay, so what we get with that is not really any grain. These liquid plug-in brushes are not going to show the paper texture. Now, bristly dabs will, so that's why they work well together. All right, so you've seen that that's smooth. Well, now if I leave everything the same and drop my grain down to about 6%, normal brushes like this would begin to show a grain. But really, you don't see any difference at all. So let's bring it back up to 100%. And this time I'm going to take the pressure to none. Now, when you take the pressure to none, can you see that there appears to be more texture here? It's not quite as smooth as it was before. Let's go back to pressure and see it's a lot smoother than we were seeing before. So grain, if you want to work with grain, you want to be in the general control panel and try playing with pressure. You can also play with the amount of grain, but pressure to none will give you a little bit of change there. Okay, now let's delete this for a moment, and we'll put another little stroke down. And at this point, we're going to look at jitter. All right, so let's just take the jitter and move it up to 2. Now what jitter does is it takes the dab profile, and if we look over here and click on this little preview brush dab, you'll see what the brush dab actually looks like. Now, when you paint, oops, I took it up to 2 already. When I paint now, the jitter is taking that basic dab and moving it or spreading it out so that it looks like kind of a jitter. But look at how nice the brush becomes. I mean, this is really pretty and looks like it would be a lot of fun for, you know, maybe painting with impressionist type paintings. What if you take it all the way up to 4? Whoa, you get a much bigger variation of the same thing. And it's really kind of cool. Now, you're probably noticing that these brushes blend and so forth. Let's take this one back to its original, and we'll go delete. One of the fun things about the brush is I've set it up so that it dries out. As you continue to paint with it, it actually dries out of paint. Now you see some paint here. Okay, this is where I need to go back and try something different. Let's take my rectangle selection tool, and we'll just select half of the canvas. Okay, now I'm going to take my trusty fill tool, and I'll find a color to fill with. Let's see, if I come down here, let's just take one of these colors. It's kind of nice neutral blue, and we'll fill it. Okay, now we're going to get rid of our selection. So we've got half the canvas white and half the canvas blue. Now, when this brush, oops, I need to get a new color. Let's go to, we'll go to a darker kind of blue. All right, when this brush paints, if you pick it up, you know, make a stroke, pick up, make a stroke, pick up, you're going to get this nice heavy-duty color. If you make a stroke and don't pick your stylus up, the paint begins to wear out and it picks up or blends whatever color is there. So it's blending out to this lighter gray color, to the same color that the canvas is. And you can bring in that color and blend with the image. If we switch to red, you see it's going to blend with this blue. As long as I don't pick the stylus up. Pick it up and dab, then you'll get strong color, but you can still, you know, work with it a little bit because the dry out is not real fast on this. Now, I want to show you the difference over here. If you're working on this side and you begin to run out, it's going to react with the canvas color, which in this case is white. Over here, the canvas color is that sort of blue-gray. So you're going to get that kind of color. Now, if you sample the color, put it over here, you see you've got a bright red. Sample this one, and look how we're getting more of a purpley color with each kind of mixture that you get. So I did this double line here so that you would see that it's going to play with whatever color is on the layer that it's on, or on the canvas. So if we come over to the white side, it's going to get lighter and white. On this side over here, it begins to turn whatever color you see. Okay, so now we know that it's going to interact with the paint that's on this canvas layer. But we kept talking about dry out. So let's close these panels over here and open up the well brush control panel. Now, the well brush control panel has your resaturation up here at 90%. This particular brush. The bleed is at 20%. This has no pressure expression. This does have pressure expression. And over here, you have the dry out. Okay, let's talk about each one. And what we want to do is clear our canvas. Okay, so resaturation at 90 or 100% means that you're going to have a fair amount of paint picking up in, with this brush stroke. Now, if you drop that resaturation, you're not going to be loading the brush as much. And look at how we're loading a very small amount of paint compared to what we were loading before. So if I take my resaturation back up to 90 or 100, but back up far, then I'm going to get more paint to start with. Now, the bleed has to do with how much it interacts with the pigment already on the canvas. And you can move this around, change pressure to none, change it to other things, and you can get some different kind of approaches. Let's take this on up to 100%. And look how that bleeds. It's really hard to get that dark color anymore unless I really stay in the same spot and keep going over and over it, because the first stroke is going to blend with the color that's down there. So even if I take a bright red and put it over this green, notice how it blends to sort of a neutral gray. Put it over here, same thing, but it's going to go to white. So bleed down real low. Let's take it down to about 3%. You see how it doesn't blend as much with the paint that's there. So if you want it to, not blend so much, then decrease your bleed. All right, let's put it back up to, we'll just hit reset up here, and that brings it back. Now, dry out. Okay, so let's delete this, and we'll go to the dry out. We'll go to the brush, and we'll begin to paint. And if I leave my stylus on the canvas and don't pick up, go there and keep going, never pick up, you can see the dry out, okay? So let's take this dry out and move it all the way up to the right. Now watch. See, the brush is never going to dry out. And even trying to mix, it's going to be difficult because it never dries out. So let's take another color. We'll take this blue, and let's increase our bleed all the way up. See, it's still not mixing too much because it's got so much paint on it and it doesn't dry out. Let's reduce that paint to about 8% and see, I'm going to get a little bit of mixture here, not much, just a little bit, because we're not putting so much paint in. So let's bring this back up. Let's hit back to our default. Now that I'm going to take the dry out way down to 1.5, and we'll delete what's there. Look at that. It's going to dry out really quickly. Now, many of the brushes do dry out very quickly. That's on purpose, but I would look at the setting and change it to whatever seems to work best for you. So this is kind of like traditional oil. You grab some paint from your palette and begin to paint with it, and pretty soon you have to go back to the palette, grab some more, and paint again with it, okay? So that's what that's all about. Now, let's go to a couple of other things. Size is very important. In this particular brush, I have the men's size at 33.7, the regular size at 33.7, but the men's size is at 100%. What this means is that the minimum size the brush can make will always be equal to the size of the brush. Now, if I take this men's size down, let's take it down to 10%, and I paint, nothing is going to happen. Anything. It's I'm stumbling around tonight. It doesn't affect the size. Okay, you would think it would because I have a smaller men's size, and the reason it doesn't is because the expression is set to none. So let's take that expression and set it to pressure. Now, when I press hard, I'm going to get the same width stroke, but as I reduce my pressure, I can get a stroke that is 10% of the original size. So 10% of this would be 3.7. This is just like going down to the brush being at 3.7 and then back up to 33.7. Okay, now I even like to do this. I prefer to go all the way down to 0, and I have a very small size step at about 2%, and leaving it at pressure. That means I can actually get a linear kind of brush stroke. But with the paint drying out so fast, it's hard to get that to go. Plus, I've got this set on pressure. If I go back to general, my opacity is also set to pressure. So a light pressure would give me light opacity and a light stroke, which they're kind of working against each other. So if I want that thin stroke, I would probably come over here then and change the pressure opacity to none. And now I can get that thinner stroke that you see. But to make it really work, I would come over here to dry out, and I would increase that dry out all the way up. Gosh, I just realized I'm right near the end of that panel. I hope I can show it to you. All right, so I've taken the dry out, so now look, I've got a brush that paints from very thin to thick, but without any of the dry out. Okay, so you can again, what I'm trying to tell you is play with these brushes and see what you can make them do. I'm going to go back to the original on this. Well, that's interesting. It didn't take me back to the original. Everything but dry out. Why is that? There we go. Okay, it just wasn't doing it. All right, so now we're back to the original again that looks like this. And I love this brush. I like it just the way it is. Okay, next issue. Let's look at angle. Now, when you want to use the angle panel, you have to start with squeeze at less than 100%. So it needs to be 99, 98, unless you want to actually squeeze it, and then you can bring it on down. But right now, this is what the brush looks like. And if I squeeze it to, say, 10% or 11%, you see how the ghost brush changed? And look at how, you know, I still have those brush strokes, but everything has been so squeezed. Let's look at the dab profile. See, everything has been squeezed. Take this back up to 98, and then it's back open again. Okay? So your angle your squeeze can affect what happens to your brush. Now, also, don't forget that you have the possibility of changing the size of the brush. And if you keep holding down that, you know, if you change the size of the brush and then click again, you go to opacity. So I could change the opacity of the brush here, click again, and I go to squeeze. Now I can squeeze the brush, and if you look at the, when I finish, see, it brought it down to 12%. So you can do all of that with the dynamic brush adjuster. You hold down Control plus, and that will give you the radius. Hold down click again, and you get to opacity. Click again, and you get to squeeze. So now I want to bring the squeeze back up. And I went to 100%, so I don't want to go to 100. I want to go to about 98. All right, so I'm back to where I started, except that my size went down. So we'll bring it back up. And this time we're at about 51 on the size. Okay, so that's kind of how angle works. One other thing, at least that's how squeeze works. One other thing here is angle. Now, the angle right now at 0 makes these bristles go horizontal. And the expression called direction means that no matter what direction I paint, the bristles follow that direction. Okay? So what if I don't want them to look like lines like I've got here? What I want to do then is come over to the side, and I'm going to take the angle and change it to about 45 degrees. Ta-da! See how it changed it now to 45 degrees? I've still got direction, but it's going to give me a different kind of look. Now, direction is probably not the best when you have something at an angle. You might want to go to random, which then just makes it kind of a random sort of stroke. And that, I think, would work better if you start playing with the angle. So let's go back to direction, and we'll go back to 0 here. And with this angle, if you turn the brush, you'll see it doesn't exactly make a very smooth, round round paint stroke around the edges. That they get kind of, not very smooth. So if you take the angle step and bring it down to 0 and the angle range to 360, that means that it's going to, the angle will follow 360 and it will not have any side steps in it. So that will make it a little bit better when you're making a round stroke. It really has to do with the ratio or the size of the brush. For instance, if we bring that brush down a bit, see now that's going to give us a fairly good circle. If we take it back up to 15%, let me just type it in. Now, you see it's a little bit rougher. Doesn't really look like it to me, but I know it is. That's the way this stuff always works. It doesn't show itself well. But I know that it is. And if you change these angles here, like even if I take the up to 246, see, look at what it's doing now. That doesn't look right. See, so you've got to keep your range. You have to decide how you want to work this range. Now, the reason I go to 15%, David Gell told me once, and I think we were in 11 at that time, that if you take this to 0, it puts extra processing requirements on the program to load the brush, not to paint with it, but to load the brush. In other words, if I were to switch to another brush and come back to it, if I were at 0, it might take a little bit of time to load. My computer's so fast now that I'm not noticing that, but I used to notice it, and I've just stayed with this 15%. Okay, the last thing is spacing. Now, I have the spacing up to about 15% and 1%. I do have dampening on, and I'm not going to talk about dampening and cubic interpolation. I'm trying to say it right. Both of these things have to do with the edge of the brush. You know, an edge of a brush can have little pixelation to it as it's painting on whatever pixels per inch we have. These things, these two sliders will make the edge of the brush, it cleans that any of those pixels up on the edge. Now, what do they, let's see, what have I got my size on? I want to bring my size back up to where it belongs. And we'll close this and this so I can get size back in place. Okay, let's go back to spacing. All right, so did I change? I changed brushes. I went to the texture rigger somehow. I don't know how I did that. But we can just come back to more bristles. Okay, so size, did I fix it? Yep. Come back to spacing. I have the spacing at 15% and the min spacing at 1. So the max will be 15% for the spacing, and the smallest spacing would be 1. Now, what does that mean? Well, let's clear this and look at the brush stroke when I just make a single brush stroke with this. Okay, now let's take the spacing all the way down, min spacing and the regular spacing, and make a stroke. Can you see the difference here? Can you see that it really pushes those bristles together as you paint? I don't know if you can see the difference or not. Let's go to a bright blue, and let's hit the reset, and that'll take my spacing and min spacing back out. See how it will blend together, but it has I don't know how to describe it. Well, I tell you what, let's do it this way. It's taking each dab and separating them. That's what this is doing. So if I take it all the way up to 200, now when I paint, you see how I'm getting each dab painted, and the spacing between the dabs is pretty great. So if you go down to 0, you have no spacing, which kind of, it's a little too pat. But if I bring it up to, well, let's just bring it up to like 30. See how it's thinner, looser, a little more texture to it. Bring it back down to where I had it, and it's 15. And it's, I think this is, for me, this was the right place to put it. But you have the option to experiment with all this stuff and change the spacing, change the min spacing, see what it does, you know, and just play with it. All right, so we've talked about spacing, size, angle, and general. We've talked about the dab profile, and that we can see it here. And we've talked about the well brush control panel, and we talked mainly, or the main thing to, I mean, we talked about all of it, but the one that's most interesting for us is this dry out. Okay, so play with your dry out and see how that affects the brushes. Now, was there anything else I wanted to show you with these? And I don't believe so. Those are the basic sliders and controls that you'll want to work with all of these brushes, because they're all similar in the way that they work. Okay, that's all for now. This was a long video. I'm sorry it was so long, but I think it's important for you. All right, bye-bye.